Don't you wish you were high above the mucky muck in a castle full of clouds, sitting oh so proudly? Well, yes, I too wish I was Wonder Boy by Tenacious D, but we aren't, and we are in the midst of the mucky muck, among the mucky muckers. And today we are reading about said mucky muck because this is Daily Dose of Reddit. I am your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/TalesFromRetail. I was about to say Tenacious D. I wish. Alright, this story's called I'm Not Getting My Way? Call an Ambulance! Apologies in advance for grammar, spelling, and formatting. I wrote this on mobile and I honestly am not great at Reddit formatting. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. This is an old post. Much like many other poor, unfortunate souls, I have the displeasure of working the week of Thanksgiving at our local regional grocery chain. It's been a rough week, but last night took the cake. It's 9:25 p.m. We're finally winding down from the horrific Thanksgiving Eve traffic, but still busy. A customer appears at the help desk and I go to greet her. She tells me she called earlier and she was there to pick up a money transfer. I remember her call and log in to help her. I take all her info and enter it into the computer before I get to the ID entry. Now, the money transfer service we use is very easy to use. To pick up money, you just need the transfer code and a valid, in-date form of ID. I start to enter her ID and suddenly spot the expiration date. I'm sorry, ma'am, but your driver's license is expired. I should have seen this earlier. She is immediately distressed at this. It just expired last month. Can't you just use it? I try and explain to her that we have very strict guidelines and I cannot, under any circumstances, accept an expired form of ID. She then proceeds to tell me that she has absolutely no money and this is the only thing she has and she doesn't have enough gas to get home. And I really need to just do it because she needs it. I calmly tell her that she can call the person that sent it to her and ask them to go back to the location they sent the money from and ask them to change it to not require an ID, which is easy and will fix her issue. After some more repetitive frustration, she finally calls. Enter her niece. She explains the situation to her niece and they go back and forth briefly before I am inevitably handed the phone. I politely explain exactly what her niece will need to do to fix this. I am immediately met with condescending attitude from her niece. Hi there, OP? Yeah, you seem to be mistaken. I sent this money using my phone. I did not go to an agent. I suddenly realize I am in for a rough ride. Is there an option to edit transactions on the mobile app? I'm not 100% familiar with the app. I don't know how to use the app as we are only trained on the POS itself. As soon as I finish my sentences, they answer. No, there is not an option. I then politely explain that they will have to go to a physical location to change the transaction. Karen mode activate. I'm sorry, what was your name again? OP? Yeah, this isn't going to work. My aunt is having a very hard time right now, and I'm going to need you to pay this money out. I then reiterate myself, explaining what they have to do. Alright, OP, what location are you at? Yes, this has left a very bad taste in my mouth and I am extremely disappointed with this. I can assure you I am going to get this dealt with because I know how to get this done. Hand the phone back to my aunt. By now, I am 100% done with this situation. The woman talks to her niece on the phone briefly, then hangs up. I let her know that as soon as she gets an update to let me know, and I go to try and get the mountain of stuff I have left to do done before the store closes in 20 minutes. As I was getting some stuff done, I called my manager to the front just to bring him up to speed with the current situation in the event it escalates, which I felt it would. Unfortunately, he takes it a step further and just goes straight to the woman and asks her about the situation. She explains it to him and he repeats the same thing I told her and her niece about a dozen times now. She tells us both that she is desperate for the money and that she'll just have to sleep in the parking lot then. My manager and I both apologize and go back to closing duties. Shortly after, I walk by her and realize she's on the phone again. I decide to sit by the help desk as I'm sure she'd want to speak to me soon. She goes back and forth with her niece again before handing the phone back to me once again.
Hi there. Yeah, all of the locations near me that service money transfers have closed at 9. I really need you to go ahead and pay this out for her. My grandmother recently died and it really has taken a toll on her and she needs this money. I'd like to make it very clear to you who I am and I can provide you all of my details. Sometimes I understand people just go a little too far. I really need you to use your best judgment on this one.
At this point, I was pretty done being vaguely threatened and bullied over the phone. But before I could politely tell the woman on the phone to deal with it, my manager walks up to assess the situation. I immediately asked her if she'd like to talk to my store manager.
Oh, I'd love to.
Author's note. My store manager is a 60-plus-year-old, tall, thin, Wisconsin man that has worked enough retail years to have absolutely no patience for BS like this. He's not rude, but he won't take crap from anyone.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we cannot help you. This is against policy,
etc., etc. While he's talking to her, the woman who originally came in was standing to the side of the desk. Suddenly, she started to grasp her chest and moan. She didn't say anything to either of us or try to get our attention, but I noticed her out of the corner of my eye. The more my manager told her niece we could not do it, the louder she got.
Oh, my pacemaker! I don't even have my nitro pills! Oh, Lord!
Etc. Finally, she apparently had enough.
I need someone to call me an ambulance.
I tell my manager, who was still arguing on the phone. He immediately hands the phone to me and calls an EMS. I pick up the phone. Ma'am, we're calling your aunt an ambulance. I'm hanging up the phone. Before I could hang up, she responds.
What? Let me speak to my aunt.
I hand the phone to the woman.
Oh, Lord, it's my pacemaker and I don't even have my nitro pills. Oh, no,
etc. She hangs up the phone and just kinda stands there, before eventually starting to lean to one side. I then walked over to stabilize her as my manager is on the phone with the EMS. The moment I get to her, she starts to limp to one side or another alternatively. I gently held her by the shoulders to keep her upright and ask my manager to get her something to sit on. He brings something over and I set her on it. As we waited, she continued to slump in the chair, but I made sure she stayed alert and conscious. As soon as the ambulance pulled into the parking lot, she suddenly became more alert.
Oh there, I can feel my pacemaker. That's better.
The EMTs brought in a stretcher, loaded her up, and took her out. They sat in the parking lot for about 20 minutes before driving off with no lights, so I can assume she was okay. But I really won't know until I inevitably see her again. All in all, this was one of the most frustrating and ridiculous things I have ever had to do at my job. I was already thoroughly stressed out from the holiday load, and this made the day even worse. All over about $50. I just hope she's okay from this event and that I can get a physical copy of the customer complaint they send in, so I can frame it on my wall. Happy holiday season, everybody. It can only get worse. Edit. Thanks for all the kind words. Hope everyone had a holiday. Had a great holiday. She came in the next day and got her money, after her niece corrected the problem. My coworker that helped her told me she cursed me under her breath when she saw me. I watched her drive away. I wonder how she's gonna pay for that ambulance. In case you don't know, ambulance rides are insanely expensive in the United States. because I know not everyone is aware of that. But yeah, $50, definitely not enough. In fact, I'm pretty sure my aunt's ambulance bills have been around like $700 to like $900, I think. Yeah, it's not cheap at all. And also, do not freaking fake a medical emergency just to get $50. That is just incredibly dumb. The resources wasted on that fake call is nothing to sneeze at, okay? We're not just talking about money, we're talking about personnel, we're talking about the freaking ambulance. This story is called Colorblind Man on Drugs Demands a Pink Fish. So this is an old story, about 10 years old, but I used to work at a tropical fish store and people used to come from out of state in several states over to go to us because we were that good. We used to supply the aquarium nearby as well as all sorts of other things, so we had quite the reputation. Now the story takes place when I was about 18, and on this particular day, I was working by myself with the owners in the back doing the books. This guy comes in and he looks semi-strong, but honestly, fish people are weird, so I didn't even think twice about it. He finds me in the store and asked me to help him pick out a pink fish for his mom's tank. Totally fine, right? We have pink fish, what could go wrong? I ask him what kind of tank he has, and he says that his mom has African cichlids. For any of you who don't know, they are a fancy type of fish, obviously from Africa, from the 3 lakes. And there are very many rules of who you can put together and how many you need to get of each kind because they can get territorial and will kill each other. So after having a long discussion, I understand what his options are and start leading him to different fish. Mind you, there were probably 3 actually pink fish he could have chosen, and at least 6 other species that had pink on them either in a stripe or a spot, etc. I showed him the first fish, and he says, "I asked for a pink fish." Okay, I show him the next fish. He gets slightly angrier and says, "Why aren't you showing me pink fish?" At this point, I'm understanding still, because technically the 2 fish I showed him could be considered peach color or a pinkish albino, so I continue leading him to more options. He starts getting angry. At one point, he started cursing me out because I was keeping all the pink fish from him, and that I just didn't want to sell him the fish and I was jerking him around. We ended up getting in an argument about the fish, and then to prove his point, he points to a bright blue fish and yells, "Why can't I have this one? Just sell me a pink fish!" Now, being an 18-year-old female, this kind of frightened me because I realized that I couldn't reason with him because he and I were not seeing the same color, and was escalating very, very quickly. I decided to offer that I can get him my boss, because my boss was amazing and has always said that if we were uncomfortable, just to go get him. And he quickly agrees that this is the best method of action since I refuse to show him pink fish. My boss comes out, quickly recognizes who this is, and turns to me and says, "He's a colorblind drug addict. Just go sit in the back." So I got a nice 30-minute paid break while my boss dealt with him. For anyone wondering, he happily left with 3 blue fish that were blatantly pink, and while he was being cashed out, I could hear him talking about how rude I was for withholding all the good fish from him. Fish people are weird. Thanks for reading. Now I know why I have such an aversion to Aquaman. And here I was thinking it was just because he slept with my wife. Man, I need to get over my prejudices. This story's called The Biggest, Most Questionable Return I Ever Saw at the Department Store. It was about 17 or 18 years ago in a large department store anchor in a mall. I was working the blue jeans counter on the first floor of the store. It was the closest checkout to one of the big side entrances. A preteen kid of about 11 or 12 comes up to my register with 2 giant shopping bags in tow. The biggest bags our store makes. And they are bulging, and he's straining to carry the bags that are practically dragging behind him. The kid says he wants to return some stuff. Well, that's what we're here for. Well, we'd rather sell stuff, but we're also here to process returns. I'll do my job. This kid then starts throwing all the various items onto the counter, and they all have their tags with the little proof of purchase barcode we put on them at the time of purchase, so we could take them for return without a receipt. So they should all be valid returns. He piles up a lot of stuff on the counter for returns from around the store. He was throwing down jeans, pants, socks, ties, shirts, sneakers, high heels, lingerie, pantyhose, dresses and skirts, pajamas, dress shirts, a couple of jackets, men's and boys' underwear. It was essentially an entire family's wardrobe, and it was all scanning as valid returns as everything had all the tags and proof of purchase. Since who sells every item is tracked with those barcodes, and we were all on a quota system that is tied to our rate of pay and performance evaluations, these returns would count against somebody who would likely be in trouble later for the huge hit their performance would take. Well, eventually, this giant pile of clothing was finished tallying out, and it came several $1,000s worth of clothes to return. Now, before I pushed the button to finish the return, I had to ask a scripted question to the young customer. Do you want the return in the original tender? His eyes lit up like Christmas morning.
Tender? Yeah, I want tender.
Okay, original tender it is. I push the button for that, and the register makes that loud grinding noise it makes while it prints out a receipt as I tell him that however many thousands of dollars was returned to the credit card that all this stuff was purchased on. He goes from giddy to whiny brat in half a second flat.
But I want cash! Give me cash! I want cash now!
He actually started stomping on the floor as he says it, starting on a temper tantrum more fit for a toddler. He keeps repeating that he wants those thousands in cold, hard cash right now for the returns. Well, besides the fact that I have just a few hundred in the register at most, so I'd have to send him upstairs to the office for that much cash, even if he was going to get a cash return, the bigger problems were that you can't do a cash return for an item purchased on a credit card. And the biggest problem was that the return had just been completed and the items were store property again. I explained these points to the young man, who gets a scared look on his face and very nervously asks for all the clothes back. I remind him that he has returned the clothes, but if he wants, I will sell it all back to him for the several $1,000 sum. He gets a look of shock and horror on his face and makes a run for the exit, dashing out the side entrance of the store and into the parking lot. I glanced out the glass doors and saw the kid flat out sprinting across the parking lot and off into the distance. I always wondered, even almost 2 decades later, what was going on with that. Probably stolen or something, but I still scratch my head at the whole thing. Yeah, something was definitely stolen there. Oh, that poor kid. That poor kid, such a dumb criminal. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.